You're standing in your living
used to
room
think
on a
more
random
things would make me
Tuesday
happy.
night. Amazon boxes
Turns
are
out,
stacked by the door,
contentment was already
clothes are
here.
hanging off the back of a chair, and your desk is somewhere under 3 layers of "I'll deal with it later." Your brain feels like it has 50 tabs open, and somehow every single one is lagging. Then you unlock your phone and scroll. You see a video of a studio apartment with clean lines, warm light, one plant, one mug, one calm human breathing in the quiet. Nothing on the counters, no piles, no visual shouting. You can actually feel your shoulders drop just by staring at that screen for 10 seconds. Part of you whispers, "I want that." Another part snaps back, "Come on, I'm not a minimalist. I like my stuff. My stuff is me." At Ego and Me, we don't think clutter is just a mess and minimalism is just an aesthetic. We see both as messages from your ego, trying to keep you safe in 2 completely different ways. So tonight, let's decode why some brains are drawn to less and why yours might be one of them. Let's start with your brain. Some people are born with what psychologists call a high need for cognitive closure. That's a fancy way of saying their mind hates unfinished business. To a brain like that, every visible object is an open tab. That pile of mail on the counter is a tab labeled "Deal with Bills." The laundry on the chair is "Make a decision." The random gadget you never use is "Return me or admit you're keeping me forever." Nothing is neutral. Everything is asking a tiny question. If you're wired this way, clutter doesn't feel like, "Oh, I should tidy up someday." It feels like a constant low-grade alarm. You're not dramatic. Your nervous system is just tired of being pinged by every object in the room. Studies on clutter and anxiety show that when people with this kind of brain live in simpler spaces, their stress drops and their focus comes back. At Ego and Me, we see these minimalism-leaning brains not as control freaks, but as clarity seekers. They're not obsessed with empty rooms. They're obsessed with finally closing all those tabs. Now let's talk about control. Some people move through life with what psychologists call an internal locus of control. They deeply believe what I do changes my life more than what I buy. Think about how advertising talks to the opposite belief. Every slogan promises that the right couch, the right shoes, the right gadget will finally make you feel confident, productive, lovable. If your sense of control lives outside you, that message hits hard. You start collecting objects like little life rafts. But if you lean minimalist, you're often suspicious of that promise. You look at the same ad and think, "Nice lamp, but it won't fix my burnout." Your brain trusts actions more than acquisitions. Clean up your schedule. Have an honest conversation. Sleep. Those feel like real solutions. Another cart full of stuff doesn't. Studies on consumer behavior find that people with a stronger internal locus of control are less swayed by trends and social pressure when they shop. At Ego and Me, we see this as a quiet rebellion. Minimalism for these people is not about owning nothing. It's about refusing to outsource their happiness to the next delivery box. Some people aren't just bothered by clutter. Their nervous system is wired to feel every light, every sound, every object in the room at once. Psychologists call this high sensory sensitivity, and it shows up in about 1 out of 5 people. For a brain like that, a busy space isn't just messy, it's physically loud. Every bright color, every overlapping shape, every item on the shelf competes for attention. Sitting in a cluttered room can feel like trying to read a book at a concert. That's why minimalism often feels like medicine to them. When the surfaces are clear and the colors are soft, their body finally stops bracing for impact. They can hear their own thoughts again. It's not that they're picky or anti-fun. Their nervous system simply maxes out faster than other people's. Minimalists are often not just tidy people. They tend to think a few steps ahead. Psychologists call this a future-oriented time perspective. When they pick up an object in the store, they don't only ask, "Do I want this right now?" Their brain quietly runs a longer script. Will I still want this in a year? Where will I put it? How hard will it be to move with it? What will it demand from my future self? That kind of thinking slows down impulse buying. It shifts the focus from the thrill of getting something new to the long-term cost of storing, cleaning, and paying for it. Research on time perspective and impulse buying shows that people who think more about the future are less likely to trade tomorrow's peace for today's rush. At Ego and Me, we see this as a quiet form of self-respect. Future-oriented minimalists treat their tomorrow self like a real person they care about, not a dumping ground for today's decisions. Owning less becomes a side effect of asking one simple question: does this object deserve space in my future, or is it just borrowing dopamine from tonight? So if you're drawn to minimalism, it might not be because you're secretly cold or boring. Maybe your brain craves closure instead of chaos. Maybe your sense of control lives inside you, not inside a shipping box. Maybe your nervous system hears clutter louder than other people do. Maybe you just like your future self enough to stop handing them more stuff to carry. And if minimalism doesn't appeal to you, that's valid too. Some brains thrive on variety, collections, and visual stories on every wall. Ego and Me isn't here to crown one lifestyle correct. We're here to help you understand the psychology behind the way you live, so you can choose it on purpose. If this episode helped you recognize yourself, tell us in the comments. Are you here for the clear surfaces, the quiet brain, the future self, or all three? And if you want more gentle deep dives into the ego behind your everyday choices, subscribe to Ego and Me. We'll keep exploring the tiny things that quietly shape the way you think, work, and live.